The night Claire passed away, the world seemed to lose its sound. For 37 years, Michael had shared his life with her, and now he sat in their home surrounded by a silence so heavy it pressed against his chest. The house, once alive with her presence, felt strange and unfamiliar. The kitchen, where the smell of cinnamon rolls used to linger on Sunday mornings, now smelled only of cold coffee. The garden she had loved looked abandoned, even though only a week had passed. Every corner carried her mark, yet none of it felt alive anymore. Anna, their only daughter, came home the morning after the funeral. She had left her apartment in New York as soon as the news reached her, not even thinking about work, her friends, or the life she had been building there. The moment she opened the front door, she knew everything had changed. Her father looked older than she remembered. His shoulders, once strong and upright, were bent as if carrying a weight too heavy to bear. He greeted her with a quiet nod. No words, no embrace. Just tired eyes that carried more grief than tears could ever show. Anna moved through the house like someone wandering through a museum of memories. She touched the fabric of the couch her mother had chosen, flipped through the recipe book that still had Claire's handwriting in the margins, and stood by the window where her parents used to drink tea every evening. Every detail was the same, but it all felt unreal without her mother's voice filling the silence. In those first few days, Anna tried to distract herself by doing practical things, organizing bills, preparing meals, cleaning up the piles of sympathy cards. But no matter how much she kept herself busy, she couldn't escape the weight of absence. Her father hardly spoke. He would sit in the living room for hours, staring at the spot where Claire's chair used to be. Sometimes Anna caught him whispering under his breath, as if carrying on a conversation only he could hear. She wanted to comfort him, but she didn't know how. Grief was new to her too, and she felt just as lost. One evening, a week after the funeral, Anna found herself walking into her parents' bedroom. She wasn't sure why. Perhaps curiosity, perhaps longing. The room was perfectly neat, as though waiting for its owner to return. On the dresser sat a small framed photo of her parents from years ago. Michael was smiling wide, his arm around Claire, who leaned against him with her head tilted the way she always did when she laughed. Anna stared at the picture for a long time, realizing she had never seen her parents as anything other than mom and dad. Here, they looked like two people in love, two people who once dreamed together. That night, Anna lay awake in her childhood bed, thinking about her father. She had never seen him this way. Growing up, he had always been steady, the one who fixed things, the one who gave advice, the one who stood tall no matter what. Now, he seemed fragile, as if a single wrong word might shatter him. She wondered if he would ever find his way back to himself, or if this was who he would become, quiet, broken, living only in memory. The next morning, Anna made coffee and placed a mug in front of her father. He looked at her, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice hoarse. It was the first time he had spoken more than a sentence to her since she arrived. She nodded, unsure of what to say. The silence stretched between them like a wall. In that silence, Anna realized something. Her mother had always been the bridge between them. Claire had been the one who started conversations, who filled the table with stories, who softened her father's sharp edges with her warmth. Without her, the bridge was gone, and Anna wasn't sure how to cross the distance. Later that afternoon, Anna walked to the backyard, where the autumn leaves had fallen thick on the ground. Her father was there, sitting on the bench beneath the oak tree. That tree had been planted when Anna was born. She remembered her mother telling her it would grow alongside her, its branches reaching higher each year. Now, the leaves scattered in the wind, and the tree seemed to echo her father's loneliness. "Do you want some help with the garden?" she asked gently. Her father shook his head. "No," he said. "Your mother loved this place. I don't know what to do with it now." His voice cracked, and Anna felt her chest tighten. She wanted to say something comforting, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she sat beside him. For the first time, they sat together not as father and daughter, but as two people grieving the same woman. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Anna thought about how much her mother loved sunsets. She would have liked this one, she said softly. Her father closed his eyes and nodded. She would have, he whispered. That night, when Anna went to bed, she realized the silence wasn't just about losing her mother. It was about learning to live with what remained. She had returned home thinking she was there to take care of her father. But already she could see that both of them needed something. Neither yet knew how to name. She drifted to sleep with a strange feeling, a mix of sorrow and uncertainty, as though something was waiting just beyond the horizon, something her father had not yet told her, something she wasn't ready to hear. The house had been quiet for days. Anna had fallen into a routine, making meals her father barely touched, tidying up, answering calls from relatives she hardly wanted to speak with. But beneath the stillness, she could sense something brewing inside Michael. He carried a look in his eyes that unsettled her. It wasn't only grief. It was as if he was holding on to words too heavy to say aloud. One evening, as the light faded from the windows and shadows stretched across the living room, Michael finally spoke. He had been sitting in his chair, staring at nothing, when he said her name softly. Anna. She turned, surprised by the tone. It wasn't the broken whisper she had grown used to. It was careful, hesitant, almost as if he were about to confess something. I need your help with something, he began, his voice uneven. His fingers tapped against the armrest, a nervous rhythm she had never seen from him before. Her father was a man who always knew what he wanted to say, a man who commanded respect with his certainty. To see him hesitate unsettled her more than the silence ever had. What is it? She asked, her voice low, cautious. He looked at her, but then lowered his gaze, as though eye contact made the words too heavy. Your mother, she told me once that when the time came, I shouldn't be afraid to live, that I shouldn't lock myself away. Anna frowned. What do you mean? Michael took a deep breath, his chest rising slowly, then falling like it carried years of weight. I can't do this alone, Anna. I don't know how to go on. And I need to ask you something that I never thought I'd have to. The room grew colder. Or maybe it was only the chill that ran down Anna's spine. She leaned forward. Dad, just say it. He swallowed hard. I want to see someone. For a moment, Anna thought she misheard. She blinked, her breath caught halfway. See someone? She repeated, her voice sharper than she intended. Michael nodded slowly, as if the act of admitting it had drained what little strength he had left. Not now. Not tomorrow, but soon. I don't want to grow old in this silence. Your mother didn't want that for me either. Anna felt her chest tighten. Anger, confusion, and disbelief rushed through her all at once. Dad, she said, her words trembling. Mom hasn't even been gone a month. And you're already thinking about this? Michael's eyes filled with a sadness deeper than any she had seen since the funeral. You think I haven't asked myself the same question? You think I don't feel guilty even speaking it aloud? But Anna, when you lose the person who has been your world for nearly 40 years, you realize how short life becomes. I don't want to replace your mother. I never could. I just don't want to disappear inside this loneliness. Anna's hands curled into fists on her lap. She didn't know if she wanted to cry or shout. She had come home to protect him, to guide him through grief, not to hear this. The image of her mother's face flashed before her eyes. The way she laughed. The way she touched Michael's shoulder when she wanted his attention. Could love so deep be followed by this? Michael stood, pacing slowly across the room. I know it sounds wrong. I know you're not ready to hear it. But your mother, she made me promise. She told me not to live like a ghost. She wanted me to try, and I can't ignore her wishes. Anna stared at him, her heart pounding. She wanted to ask 100 questions, but only one slipped out. Who? Her father paused. His eyes flickered with something she couldn't name. Fear, maybe hope. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he walked to the small cabinet in the corner and opened the drawer. He pulled out an envelope, worn at the edges, as though he had been holding on to it for some time. Inside, he drew out a photograph. He handed it to her with trembling fingers. Anna looked down. The picture showed a woman she didn't know. She wasn't young, but she carried a gentle beauty, warm eyes, a kind smile, the sort of face that radiated calm. Anna's stomach turned. "Her name is Evelyn," Michael said quietly. "She was a friend of your mother's, from years ago. Someone I reconnected with recently before." His voice trailed off, heavy with unspoken grief. Anna's mind spun. "Mom knew her?" "Yes," Michael said. "They worked together at the library when you were little. They stayed in touch. I never thought of her that way. Not until now. But your mother trusted her. She told me if I ever found myself lost, I shouldn't be afraid to reach out." The air between them grew sharp, thick with tension. Anna's throat burned with words she couldn't say. She wanted to scream that it was too soon, that he was betraying her mother's memory, that no one could ever take her place. But looking at her father, his hands trembling, his eyes full of fear and longing, she also saw a man desperate to keep living. Michael sat back down, his voice breaking as he whispered, "I need your blessing. Anna, I don't want to move forward without you. I don't want to lose my daughter while trying to honor what your mother asked of me." Anna's heart cracked in two. She loved her father, but she also loved her mother's memory. To give him her blessing felt like letting go of the woman who had raised her, the woman whose absence still ached like a wound. Yet to deny him meant trapping him in a loneliness that might swallow him whole. She looked at the photograph again, the smiling face of Evelyn staring back at her. And for the first time since her mother's death, Anna realized grief wasn't simple. It wasn't only sorrow. It was also questions without answers, choices without clear paths, and love that refused to end even when life did. She placed the photo on the table, her fingers trembling. "Dad," she said softly, her voice breaking, "I don't know if I can do this." Michael closed his eyes, as if bracing himself for the weight of her words. "I understand," he whispered. The silence that followed was deeper than ever before, heavy with everything unsaid. Anna felt as if the air itself was holding its breath, waiting for her decision. And though she didn't realize it yet, this was only the beginning of a story that would test not just her loyalty to her father, but her understanding of love itself. Anna stared at the photograph for a long time, her thoughts racing faster than she could control. Evelyn. The name itself felt foreign, as though it didn't belong inside this house, inside this moment of grief. She had expected her father to stay quiet for years, to live in his memories of her mother. Instead, here he was, handing her proof of someone else, proof of a life he was already considering beyond Claire. The picture showed a woman standing near a small lake, her hair touched with silver, her smile soft and inviting. She didn't look like a stranger in the harsh sense. She looked familiar in a way Anna couldn't explain, as though the photograph carried warmth with it. Still, Anna's stomach twisted. This was her mother's house. Her mother's chair still sat in the corner. Her mother's handwriting still clung to recipe cards and notes on the fridge. How could her father already bring another woman's name into this space? Michael broke the silence first. His voice was low, hesitant. "Your mother trusted Evelyn. They stayed close even when you were too young to notice. She always said Evelyn had a way of listening without judgment. They shared things I didn't always know about." Anna frowned, her throat tight. "So what are you saying? That Mom wanted this?" Michael shook his head, running a hand through his graying hair. "No, not this exactly. But she wanted me to find life again if she was gone. She knew loneliness could eat a person alive. And Evelyn. She reminded me of things I'd forgotten. Laughter, comfort, just being human again." The word stung. Being human again? Wasn't her mother enough? Didn't her memory deserve more time before someone else entered the picture? Anna wanted to protest, to tell him it was wrong. But deep down she heard her mother's voice, playful and steady. "Promise me, you won't live like a shadow when I'm gone." Her father leaned back in his chair, his shoulders slumping. "I'm not asking you to like it. I just want you to understand. This isn't about replacing your mother. No one could. This is about surviving, Anna. About not letting grief take everything from me." Anna's hands trembled as she set the photo on the table. The woman in the picture seemed harmless, kind even. But that only made it harder. If Evelyn had looked sharp or distant, it would have been easier to reject the idea. Instead, she looked like someone who could easily slip into their lives, and that terrified Anna. She rose from her seat, needing air, needing space. She stepped onto the porch, the autumn breeze brushing against her face. The neighborhood looked unchanged. The same quiet street, the same neighbors walking their dogs, the same children riding bikes. Life outside moved forward, while inside, her world was stuck between past and future. Her father joined her a few minutes later, standing silently beside her. For a while, neither of them spoke. They watched the leaves fall, listened to the faint sound of distant traffic. Finally, Michael whispered, "I can see how much this hurts you, and I hate myself for bringing it up so soon, but I'd rather be honest with you than hide something that matters." Anna turned to him sharply. "But why Evelyn? Out of everyone in the world, why her?" He sighed, his eyes drifting toward the horizon. "Because she knew your mother. Because she isn't a stranger to the love I lost. She understands what Claire meant to me. That matters, Anna, more than you know." Anna's chest ached. She wanted to argue, but the way he said it carried a truth she couldn't deny. Evelyn wasn't just another woman. She was connected to her mother in a way that complicated everything. It was as though her mother had left behind not only memories, but also someone who could care for the man she loved when she no longer could. That night, Anna couldn't sleep. She lay awake, the photograph burned into her mind. She imagined her mother's voice, her laughter, the warmth of family dinners, and then, against her will, she pictured Evelyn sitting at their table. The thought felt unbearable. It wasn't betrayal, not exactly, but it was change, and Anna wasn't ready for change. Still, her father's words echoed inside her. "I don't want to disappear inside this loneliness." The next morning, Anna found Michael in the kitchen, pouring coffee with a heaviness in his movements. She hesitated before speaking. "Did Mom ever say her name? To me, I mean?" Michael looked up, surprised by the question. He nodded slowly. "When you were little, she mentioned Evelyn sometimes. Said she was one of her closest friends. You probably don't remember, but they shared letters, phone calls. Your mother trusted her with pieces of her life even I didn't fully see." Anna sat at the table, trying to piece it together. It was one thing for her father to consider moving on. It was another to realize her mother might have known, even quietly supported, the possibility. That knowledge made Anna feel both betrayed and strangely comforted. Michael placed the coffee in front of her. "I'm not asking for an answer right now. I know it's too soon, but I needed you to see her face, to know this isn't a fantasy. She's real. She's kind. And she was important to your mother, too." Anna stared into her cup, her reflection swimming on the dark surface. She didn't respond, but deep down, she knew the photograph was more than a picture. It was a doorway to a future she hadn't imagined, one that would test everything she thought she knew about love, loyalty, and grief. Later that afternoon, when she was alone, Anna picked up the photograph again. Evelyn's smile looked steady, almost reassuring. For the first time, Anna wondered what her mother might say if she were still here. Would she scold her father for moving on too quickly? Or would she smile and say, "I told you not to let me be the end of your story"? The uncertainty gnawed at her. She placed the photo back on the table, unable to look any longer. She told herself she hated the idea, that she would never accept it. But in the quiet of her heart, she knew the truth. This wasn't the end of the conversation. It was only the beginning, and with that realization came a weight she wasn't ready to carry. Anna couldn't escape the thought. Every corner of the house reminded her of her mother. Yet the photograph of Evelyn now lived in her mind, blurring the sharp outlines of grief with something else, doubt. Each morning, she caught her father looking at the picture on the table, not with the passion of a man already in love, but with the longing of someone desperate to be rescued from loneliness. That look tore at her. She found herself split in two. On one side was loyalty to her mother, a fierce need to keep her memory untouchable, safe, untouched by any new presence. On the other was her father's fragile humanity, the truth that he wasn't only her father, he was a man who had lost his partner, who had years left to live but no idea how to live them alone. One afternoon, Anna sat in the garden with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The leaves had turned golden, drifting slowly to the ground. She thought about her childhood, how her parents used to sit under this same oak tree with iced tea, talking about plans, trips, dreams. They had always been a team, Losing her mother had not only ended that team, it had left her father without his other half. She wanted to be angry with him for even thinking about someone else, but a deeper part of her new anger wasn't the whole truth. It was fear. That evening, she confronted him. He was reading the newspaper, though Anna doubted he absorbed a word of it. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, heart pounding. "Dad," she said, her voice firmer than she felt, "how can you even think about Evelyn? Mom hasn't even been gone long." Michael folded the paper slowly, setting it on his lap. His eyes met hers with a quiet heaviness. "You think I don't hear her voice in this house every day? You think I don't reach for her in the night? I haven't stopped grieving, Anna. I don't know if I ever will, but grief doesn't erase the need to keep living." His honesty disarmed her, but she pressed on. "It feels like betrayal, like you're replacing her." He shook his head, his voice breaking. "No one could replace Claire. Not in this life, not in any other. What I feel isn't about replacing, it's about survival. Your mother knew that. She wanted me to live, not just exist." Anna felt tears sting her eyes. "But what about me? What about the way it feels to see someone else sitting at her place, standing in her kitchen, walking through this house? Don't I matter in this decision too?" Michael stood slowly, like every word weighed on him. He walked closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You matter more than anyone. That's why I told you first. I'd rather lose the chance to heal my own loneliness than lose your trust. But Anna, you need to see me as more than your father. I'm also a man who loved deeply, and who now hurts deeply. That doesn't end with one grave." The words lingered, settling into her chest. She wanted to argue more, but the fight drained out of her. Instead, she turned away, whispering, "I just don't know if I can accept it." Later that night, Anna sat in her room with her mother's scarf draped across her lap. She pressed it to her face, inhaling the faint scent that still clung to it. She thought about loyalty, what it meant, how it bound people together even after death. Wasn't her loyalty to her mother supposed to mean protecting her memory, keeping her father faithful to it? But then another thought intruded. Wasn't true loyalty also about honoring her mother's wishes? If Claire had asked Michael to live on, not drown in sorrow, was resisting Evelyn really honoring her or betraying her? The next day, Anna visited the small church where her mother's memorial had been held. She sat in the back pew, staring at the stained glass windows, the sunlight casting colors across the wooden floor. She closed her eyes and whispered into the stillness, "Mom, what would you want me to do? Would you be angry at him? Or would you tell me to let him go?" She didn't expect an answer, yet she felt a strange calm settle over her, as if the silence itself carried reassurance. Her mother had always believed love was more than possession. It was sacrifice, forgiveness, and letting go when the time came. The realization shook her. When she returned home, her father was sitting at the dining table, Evelyn's photograph in front of him. He looked up, startled, almost guilty, like a boy caught with something forbidden. Anna hesitated, then sat across from him. She traced the edge of the photo with her eyes but didn't touch it. "Tell me about her," she said finally. Michael blinked, surprised. "Evelyn?" Anna nodded slowly. "If you're serious about this, if you think Mom wanted this, then tell me who she is. Not just a name, not just a face. Tell me why her." The invitation came sooner than Anna expected. Michael stood in the kitchen one morning, pouring coffee with a nervous air, and told her in a steady but careful voice. "Evelyn asked if we'd like to have dinner with her. I said yes. I want you to come with me." Anna froze. The thought of sitting across the table from this woman made her chest tighten. It felt too soon, too raw. And yet, when she saw the anxious hope in her father's face, she couldn't bring herself to refuse. "Fine," she said quietly. "I'll go." The restaurant was small, tucked into the corner of town, the kind of place Claire had once loved for its warm lighting and calm atmosphere. Walking through the doors, Anna felt her heart race. Every step felt heavy, as though she were betraying her mother by even being there. Michael walked beside her, his posture straight but his hands clenched, betraying his own nerves. Evelyn was already seated at a table near the window. She rose when they approached, her smile gentle, not forced. She was dressed simply, a soft cardigan over a dark dress, her hair swept back with elegance. She didn't look like someone trying to replace anyone. She looked like herself, confident but humble. "Anna," she said, extending a hand. "I'm so glad to finally meet you. Your mother talked about you often." The mention of her mother's name hit Anna like a sharp note. For a moment, she wanted to pull back, but she forced herself to shake Evelyn's hand. Her grip was warm, steady, not overbearing. They sat down, the three of them. The waiter came. Menus were passed, but Anna barely read hers. Her eyes kept flicking between Evelyn and her father. Michael seemed calmer now, as though Evelyn's presence gave him strength. That unsettled Anna even more. The conversation began with small things. Evelyn asked about Anna's work in New York, and Anna answered politely, though her voice carried hesitation. She didn't want to give away too much. Evelyn, however, spoke with ease. She talked about books she was reading, a garden she was trying to keep alive, little things that painted her as a woman with her own world, not someone desperate to fit into theirs. What surprised Anna most was when Evelyn began sharing stories about Claire. She laughed gently as she told one about the two of them volunteering at the library years ago, how they once misplaced a whole box of donated books and found them weeks later in the janitor's closet. Michael chuckled quietly, a sound Anna hadn't heard in months. Anna listened, conflicted. Hearing Evelyn talk about her mother felt like opening a window to a room she hadn't known existed. Evelyn described Claire not just as mom, but as a friend, a woman who confided, dreamed, sometimes doubted herself. It was strange, almost comforting, yet also painful. How could this stranger know parts of her mother that Anna had never seen? At one point, Evelyn placed her hand lightly on the table and said softly, "Claire once told me she worried about Michael being alone. She said he'd never admit it, but he needed people more than he thought. She wanted him to have someone by his side, no matter what happened." The words hung in the air. Michael looked down, his jaw tight, while Anna felt tears prick her eyes. It sounded so much like her mother, caring, protective, always thinking ahead. But hearing it from Evelyn made it real in a way Anna wasn't ready for. Dinner moved on, plates arriving and conversations weaving in and out. Anna found herself speaking more than she expected. Evelyn asked questions, not with intrusion, but with genuine curiosity. She didn't push, didn't try to take over. She listened. That alone disarmed Anna, who had braced herself for someone louder, someone trying to claim space that wasn't hers. By the time dessert came, Anna realized her father had laughed twice, real laughter, not the broken chuckle she'd grown used to since the funeral. The sound hurt, but it also softened something in her. For months she had watched him crumble under grief. Now, across from Evelyn, he looked lighter. Not healed, not whole, but lighter. Still, when the meal ended and they stepped outside into the cool night, Anna's mind whirled. The stars were faint above, the street quiet, and she walked a few steps ahead while Michael lingered with Evelyn. They spoke softly, and Anna tried not to listen, but she caught snippets, gratitude, careful words, promises to talk again. On the drive home, the silence between father and daughter was different from before. It wasn't the heavy silence of grief. It was the restless silence of questions neither dared ask. Finally, Anna broke it. "She's not what I expected." Michael glanced at her, his hand steady on the wheel. "What did you expect?" Anna hesitated. "Someone trying to take Mom's place. Someone who wouldn't care about me, but she really did care about Mom." Michael's voice softened. "Yes, that's why I trust her." Anna turned her face to the window, her heart aching with confusion. Trust. That word carried weight. Could she trust Evelyn too? Or would doing so mean letting her mother's memory blur into something new? When they got home, Michael went straight to bed, exhausted from the emotions of the evening. Anna, however, sat alone in the living room, staring at the photograph still lying on the table. Evelyn's smile looked different now, not threatening, not invasive, but human. Still, Anna couldn't shake the feeling that letting her in would mean opening a door that could never be closed again. She pressed her hands together, whispering into the quiet house, "Mom, what would you want me to do?" There was no answer, only the creak of the old floors and the faint rustle of wind outside. But in her heart, Anna knew she was standing at the edge of something she couldn't avoid. Evelyn was no longer just a photograph. She was real, and she had stepped into their lives with a grace that was impossible to ignore. Anna didn't know yet if she could accept her. She didn't know if she could give her father what he was asking for. But she knew one thing for certain. The dinner had changed everything. The night after the dinner, Anna thought sleep would come easier, but instead her mind wouldn't rest. She lay in her childhood bed, the ceiling faintly lit by the streetlight outside. Her thoughts circled endlessly around Evelyn. Her calm voice, her stories about Claire, the way her father had smiled for the first time in weeks. It wasn't what Anna wanted to see, but she couldn't deny it. Evelyn had touched something in him that grief had buried. By morning, the house felt restless. Michael moved around quietly, but Anna noticed his unease. He seemed to want to say something but held back. She waited, half dreading, half needing to know what was on his mind. It wasn't until late that night, when they both sat in the living room with only a lamp between them, that he finally spoke. "Anna," he said, his voice softer than usual, "I need to tell you the truth." She looked at him carefully. "About Evelyn?" "About more than that," he answered. His hands rubbed together slowly, as if gathering courage. "I'm scared, Anna. I've never been this scared in my life." She frowned, her heart sinking. "Scared of what?" Michael's eyes lifted to hers, filled with a vulnerability she had never seen in him before. "Of being alone. Of waking up every morning in this house without your mother. Of eating dinner at this table with no one across from me. I feel like I'm disappearing, piece by piece, and I don't know how to stop it." Anna's throat tightened. She wanted to tell him he wasn't alone, that she was here, but the words stuck. Because deep down, she knew she couldn't fill the space her mother once had. She was his daughter, not his partner in life. "I try to be strong," he continued, his voice cracking. "For you, for myself, for her memory. But strength isn't enough when the nights feel endless. When I spoke to Evelyn, it was like finding a light in the dark. Not a replacement for your mother, never that, but a reminder that I don't have to vanish inside my grief." Anna swallowed hard. The image of her mother rose in her mind, but so did the memory of the dinner, her father laughing softly, Evelyn speaking gently. It wasn't love, not yet, but it was something. "Dad," she whispered, "I don't want you to hurt. But doesn't this feel too soon? Doesn't it feel wrong?" Michael leaned forward, his eyes glistening. "Every part of it feels wrong. Every time I even think of Evelyn, guilt rushes over me. I feel like I'm betraying Claire. But Anna, your mother, she knew me better than anyone. She told me once, long before she was sick, that if the day ever came, she wanted me to live. She said, 'Don't you dare lock yourself away. Promise me.' And I did. I promised her. Now that promise feels heavier than anything I've ever carried." Tears burned in Anna's eyes. She pictured her mother's face, kind and knowing, the way she always seemed to see things before they happened. Maybe she really had known this moment would come. Michael's voice grew quieter, trembling. "I don't want to lose your respect. That's what I'm most afraid of. If being with Evelyn means losing you, then I'll walk away from it. Because, Anna, I can live with loneliness, but I can't live without my daughter." The confession broke something in her. She hadn't realized how much he worried about her opinion, how much her acceptance mattered. She thought he had been driven by his own desires, but here he was, torn between his heart and his family. Anna wiped her eyes, trying to steady her voice. "I don't know if I can give you an answer. I'm still angry. I'm still grieving. But I see what she does for you. I saw it last night, and I can't ignore that." Michael nodded, relief and sadness mixing in his expression. "That's all I ask, that you see it. That you understand I'm not running away from your mother's memory. I carry her in everything I do. Evelyn knows that too. She doesn't want to erase her. She just wants to be here, to help me remember I'm still alive." For a long time, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the quiet ticking of the clock. Finally, Anna broke the silence. "I keep thinking about loyalty, about how holding on to Mom feels like the only way to honor her. But maybe letting you live is part of that loyalty too." Michael reached across the table, his hand covering hers. His grip was warm, steady, the same as when she was little and scared of storms. Your mother would be proud of you, he said softly. Not because you agree with me, but because you're brave enough to wrestle with the hard truth. Anna's chest ached. She didn't feel brave. She felt torn, fragile, as if one wrong move could break everything. But in her father's eyes she saw hope. Hope she hadn't seen since before her mother died. And that hope, though painful, made her realize something. Grief and love were not enemies. They lived side by side, complicated, imperfect, but real. That night, after her father went to bed, Anna lingered in the living room. She stared at her mother's photograph on the mantel, the familiar smile frozen in time. "Mom," she whispered, "I think I understand now. You didn't want him to stop loving. You wanted him to keep going. And maybe that's what love really is." The house was quiet, but the silence felt different now. Not empty, but filled with the echo of her father's confession and the unspoken truth it carried. Moving on didn't mean letting go. It meant carrying love forward in a new way. Anna didn't know what the future held. She wasn't ready to give her blessing, not yet. But she was ready to listen, to try, to see her father not just as the man who raised her, but as a human being still learning how to live after loss. And in that quiet realization, she felt a shift. It wasn't acceptance, not fully, but it was the beginning of something she hadn't felt since the funeral. Understanding. The weeks after Michael's confession felt like a season of waiting. Nothing dramatic happened, no grand declarations, but beneath the surface Anna could feel everything shifting. Her father moved through the house with a little more steadiness, as though a hidden weight had been lifted simply by telling her the truth. He didn't mention Evelyn every day, but her presence lingered in the air, unspoken yet undeniable. Anna, meanwhile, wrestled with herself. Each morning she woke with a different resolve. Some days she was determined to stand her ground, to protect her mother's memory by rejecting anything that felt like replacing her. Other days, she softened, remembering the way her father's eyes lit up during dinner, how his laughter had slipped out like a song long forgotten. Those glimpses haunted her more than her resistance. One Saturday, she drove to the lake where her parents used to take her as a child. It was early autumn, and the trees were beginning to turn, their gold and red leaves reflecting on the still water. She sat on a bench with a coffee in her hands and tried to imagine her mother sitting beside her. Claire had always loved this place, the calm of it, the way the seasons told stories without words. Anna spoke quietly, as if her mother could hear her. "I don't know what to do. If I let Dad move forward, will it mean I'm letting go of you? Because I don't want to. I don't think I'll ever want to." A breeze stirred the water, scattering ripples across the surface. Anna's heart ached with the memory of her mother's voice, gentle but firm. "Don't you dare lock yourself away." She could almost hear her saying it to her too, not just to Michael. When she came back to the house that afternoon, she found her father in the garden, kneeling in the dirt. He was planting tulip bulbs, something her mother had always done every fall. Anna watched him for a long moment before joining him. She knelt beside him, pressing her hands into the soil, feeling its cool weight. "Mom used to plant them in rows," Anna said softly. Michael gave her a tired smile. "I know. I thought about that, but I'm terrible with straight lines." She laughed lightly, the sound surprising even herself. For a moment, it felt like old times, just the two of them, carrying her mother's traditions together. Yet the difference was clear. Evelyn existed in the space between them, in the things left unsaid. Later that evening, as they washed up, Michael broke the quiet. Evelyn asked if we could have coffee next week. Just the two of us. Anna's heart stumbled. The thought of them together, without her there to witness, made the air tighten around her. She wanted to object, but then she remembered the desperation in his confession. His fear of being alone, his promise to her mother. So instead she asked carefully, "Do you want to?" Michael dried a plate, his eyes thoughtful. "I do. Not because I've stopped loving your mother, but because I want to remember how to live. I want to see if there's still something left in me that isn't grief. Anna nodded, unable to speak. She carried the conversation with her to bed, lying awake long after the house grew still. Her father wanted life, and wasn't that what her mother had asked of him? The days stretched on, each one a tug of war in her heart. At work calls with colleagues back in New York, she found herself distracted, her voice tight as she pretended everything was normal. When she met friends for coffee, she listened to their chatter but drifted away, caught between loyalty and love. None of them understood the weight of this decision, the strange role she now played, not just a daughter, but the guardian of her parents' story. One night, unable to bear the silence, she pulled out an old box of letters her mother had written over the years, birthday notes, small reminders tucked into her college care packages, little slips of encouragement in her handwriting. One caught her eye. A short note from her high school years when Anna had been crushed by her first heartbreak. Darling, love will hurt you sometimes, but don't close the door on it. The heart heals by learning to open again. Anna read the words over and over, tears staining the paper. Was this the answer? Was her mother, even now, telling her what choice to make? The next morning, she found her father at the breakfast table with the newspaper, his coffee untouched. His face looked tired, lines etched deeper than usual. Without planning, without rehearsing, she sat across from him and said, "Dad, I think you should see her." Michael's head lifted slowly, his eyes searching hers for certainty. "You mean that?" Anna nodded, though her chest tightened. "Yes, I'm not saying it's easy for me. It's not, but I can't hold you back from something that might give you life again. Mom wouldn't want that, and deep down, neither do I." His shoulders dropped, relief washing over him like a tide. "Anna, you don't know what that means to me." She looked at him with tears brimming. "I do, and I want you to be happy. I just need you to promise me something." "Anything," he said quickly. "Promise me that Mom's memory will always come first, that no matter what happens with Evelyn, she won't fade." Michael reached across the table and took her hand, his grip strong and steady. "I promise you, Claire will always be the love of my life. Evelyn knows that. She doesn't want to erase her. She wants to honor her, too. If she didn't, I wouldn't even think about this." Anna breathed deeply, her heart a mix of pain and peace. It wasn't the end of her grief, nor the beginning of blind acceptance, but it was a choice. The first step toward letting her father carry both past and present in the same breath. That evening, she stood in her mother's garden, watching the fading sunset over the tulip bulbs they had planted together. The earth was quiet, the house behind her warm with light. She whispered into the soft air, "Mom, I'm trying." I hope that's enough. For the first time since the funeral, she didn't feel only loss. She felt something more complicated, fragile, but alive. A sense that love could stretch, even through heartbreak, and still find room to grow.